get it on. Let's love, baby. Let's get it on. Sugar, let's get it on. Ooh, we're all sensitive. Employing a stark departure from the bland, clinical approach previous manuals had taken, Alex Comfort's 1972 book, The Joy of CEHX, took the world by storm. The illustrated manual spent over a year in the top 5 of the New York Times bestseller list. It was an entirely different and liberating approach to the intimate relationships that are part of the human experience. The following year, Motown soul legend Marvin Gaye released the #1 single, Let's Get It On, his own musical plea for sexual liberation. The Joy of CEHX, that's C for customer, E for employee, H for human, and X for experience, is a different kind of plea for liberation. Aileen Day has written a book that also employs a stark departure from the bland, clinical approach previous CX manuals have taken. This week, she joins me on Next in Queue, and we discuss the joy of sex and customer experience, the human experience in business, trust and brand loyalty, the dynamics of retail and manufacturing, online dating and authenticity, the importance of honest feedback, an exercise in trust, and the XM Global Collaborative and future endeavors. Let's get it on. Joining me from the future today on Next in Queue, it's Aileen Day. Aileen, how are you?
Morning.
Good
Evening.
afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me good morning because literally you're coming to me from the future
I
in
am.
Australia.
Yep.
It is.
I'm here to tell you the world is still a thing, still
Okay,
exists
that's
at
good.
this point. It's got some shit going down. Can I say that?
It does. And you can say whatever you want. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think just to give my probably more American leaning and Western Hemisphere audience some context, you are Australia's premium, not regular, like premium CX advisor, mentor, speaker, clinical therapist,
I am.
author,
Mm-hmm.
and you also sit on the board of director. We're going to get there. You just hold your horses, Missy. You sit on the board of directors of the XM Global Collaborative, and you now put it up. So for those of you that are not watching the video version of this, Aileen is holding up her book, The Joy of CEHX, the casual hookup to understanding customer, employee, and human experience. And CEHX is spelled CEHX.
We always need to get that clarity.
Cheeky with this one, didn't you?
I really did. I took what had already been done and I made it better.
Okay. In 1972, Alex Comfort wrote this book called The Joy of CEHX, A Different Sex. You know, it's pretty revolutionary at the time, kind of took on particularly in the Western Hemisphere, taboo type of stuff. And really mainstreamed and made the stigma around these conversations around sex much less of a thing. Is that what you're trying to do with this book, but with CX and not with sex?
Yeah. Look, I think the premise of the very original Joy of Sex was, and I would have to say I'm the ilk where my parents had a copy, and so as a young lady, I I had a flick through some of the pages, and what I learnt, apart from apart from a few positions, but what I learnt was that it was okay to feel a certain way about sex, and it was, if anything, it was, if you were doing it right, if you were following the instructions, that you could elicit a certain joy, right?
Mhm,
And that
mhm.
to live with this joy, you should not feel bad about doing the work to create joy in your life. And for me, when I thought about writing this book, I I already knew, and I explain it in the book actually. I knew, but only just, that the acronym CEX related to customer employee experience. And I mean only just. I've been working in customer experience for over 12 years, and I probably only learned about that sex acronym maybe 4 years ago. So, I don't know if I'm late to the party or what the case might be, but when I heard it, I was instantly kind of thrown back to the original Joy of Sex, and I really did go on to think, but there's just still, for that joy to be real in this context, there's something missing. I feel like there's something missing in that acronym. And I sat in it, had a few champagnes, thought about it for a few more days. And then I realized, pardon me, I realized that for me, there's no joy unless we start really purposefully caring about that human experience in everything that we do. And so that's where the H came in.
Is that, do you think, the biggest miss that companies have today is that human piece? I mean, how is it that we're still struggling with that if in fact that's the case?
You know what's so interesting? When I first started writing the book, ChatGPT, like AI, for those who may not know, AI, I'm 45, AI has been around for about, in its like known form, for nearly as long as, if not longer than I've been alive, right? And but the models that we see now, the ChatGPTs and the Anthropics and all that stuff, that are now just becoming part and parcel of our daily life. Those did not exist when I started writing this book. And what was really interesting for me in doing the research around the human experience, and as you mentioned before, I'm also a clinical psychotherapist. So I see clients as a therapist as well as clients, sometimes the same client and sometimes different, as a business advisor, but I always am looking at people through the lens of that kind of psychotherapy. And um, in fact, I have a shirt that I love to wear that says, "Keep talking. I'm still, still coming up with your diagnosis."
I love it.
And and for me, I was like, okay, well, surely we have nailed this human experience, got the basics down before we start looking at cheat codes in the forms of using AI. And we absolutely have not. Absolutely have not got anywhere close to it. There are some outliers in parts of the world who really do put the human first, but for the most part, we incessantly around the world look to do what we want to do as easily and generally more ineffective than we used to.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we all want things to be easier, right? Is there something wrong with that, or is it just that in our quest to make things easier, we find new and interesting ways to make things more challenging?
Well, my question always is easier for who?
Touche,
Mm,
touche.
yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Sometimes easier for shareholders, I think, is sometimes how we approach things in the business world, but the customer, right, is in businesses that really are successful in putting creating fans, right? People who want to come back. They're thinking about how do I make it easier for the customer on a consistent basis, right?
I'd also say, though, in those cultures, they have also taught their shareholders to understand that particular investments into the customer is what garners them more long lasting and sustainable high profit shares. And so, I literally just was talking to a few organizations recently about this shareholder experience. And I don't know about you, but I've held shares. I do hold shares now for different organizations. I have very little to no say in how that organization spends their money. But I tell you, if I had the opportunity to help them understand that as a shareholder, my primary concern is that they don't piss off the customer, and if that then impacts my shares for a quarter, for a year, for a period of time, because we are as shareholders engaged in investing in great and joyful sex so that we're not losing money on employee churn. So we're not losing money on customers, you know, to be blank, to be, shit canning us all over the web, right? Whatever the case might be. Um, I would be in for that. And if you think
Mhm.
about a lot of organizations, the majority of those shareholders are just mum and pop kind of shareholders. The problem is that they're not the problem. It's the majority share, like the executives and the corporates who have, you know, an ridiculous amount of shares for one person.
Yeah. Yeah, the activist shareholders, the institutional investors. Yeah,
Correct. They're the
I'm
ones
with
who
you
are,
on that. Yeah, they are the ones that are guiding those demands for typically quick returns,
yeah,
quarter over quarter, as opposed to the long term, and they are not always in it for the long haul.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is something that really has come to light in my mind in recent times. And when I talk about customer segments, I think the shareholder as a customer segment is one that I personally could acknowledge I've not paid enough attention to and applied enough pressure to my clients in the work that we've been doing to say, actually, we need the shareholders on board, but not for the reason you think.
Right. It's interesting to me that there are incredibly successful companies who have actually told shareholders that, "Hey, we are not necessarily going to give you the best returns because we are going to focus on our employees. We are going to focus on our customers and we try to get the best deals. It's come up multiple times on this show. I'm a huge fan of Costco. Costco of today is maybe not exactly the same as Costco of yesteryear, but they still have a focus on their customers in a way that most companies do not. And they continually drive a value for their customers, which I can say as a customer, I appreciate, and it always keeps me coming back. And I am very loyal to that company because of the way that they treat me. And I know that their maybe share returns are not as solid as they could be in some people's eyes, but at the same time, they continue to grow year over year. They
Yeah.
continue to drive more revenue, and their shares have continued to go up despite challenging economic environments.
Yeah.
Their retention rates are through the roof, and they
Absolutely.
literally charge members a fee to be a member.
And people happily pay it
Yeah,
because they feel like there's value in that brand. And
absolutely.
that's the other thing that I talk to people about is what you have now is a business. How do you how do you apply the disciplines and activities of sex to create what is to be a trusted, most important, a trusted and value driven brand? And in your example of Costco, uh, you know, do you trust it enough or so implicitly that you would not, pre shopping at Costco, go and check out if there's other value kind of providing outlets somewhere else? Do you trust that? We have an organization here called Bunnings, and it is essentially your version of Home Depot. And they have EDLP, so everyday lowest prices. And that's their pricing framework, pricing model. And people trust over years of hard work that when they go into a Bunnings, they will certainly find a product at its cheapest price. And to the level of which they generally even know that if it was cheaper somewhere else, Bunnings already has known that and has reduced their price to either beat it or to match it or beat it. And on the very, very rare times, and I would say this, it's actually quite rare after working there for 16 years, how often someone would find something that hadn't been picked up, and they would come in, show us the product, and we'd go, no worries, no friction, no bullshit. You found it. Thanks for letting us know. We're now going to go and change every store in our network to match it. But for your effort, we're going to take 10% off. And they know that to be an easy, friction free process. But for the most part, there is trust in the brand that there is value already in the promise.
Yeah. It also sounds like, right, it's not just about price because we all know you can fight on price and that's a race to the bottom.
Mm,
There's the value and also that frictionless experience when I do find a better price somewhere.
yeah,
It's not just, "Oh, okay, we'll match it." Now, I'm literally gonna award you for bringing this to our attention so that we can
yeah.
make sure everybody else is getting the same value. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And if you think about it from an organization's point of view, for the many, many organizations that do not do price matching or price beating as a process or a policy, it's in your best interest because again, it just takes one person to notify you that, hey, of all the millions of products, you missed one, and for you to then be able to change your network price on the spot. And if you don't, then apart from anything, the worst case scenario is not that your network is now the wrong price compared to, a competitor. Your worst case scenario is that you have broken the trust.
Mm,
That costs more
yeah.
than the 10% discount you could give your customers for picking something up that you may have missed.
Yeah,
That costs more.
absolutely. So for retailer, that makes total sense. But for the makers of products, there's a different nuance to the experience. I'm curious, in your experience, what is different? If I'm a retailer and I'm selling other people's products versus I'm the actual brand creating this product,
Yeah.
how is that different in how I create experiences for customers?
I think it too comes into a really intimate, if we're talking about the joy of sex, we're talking about a really intimate relationship. If I think about, the organizations that manufacture a product, for example, they need a distributor, they need a seller, they need a retailer. They have to be able to, with absolute impunity, be able to show that retailer that they are a trusted brand as well. And the reality is that that's not always the case. A lot of people can talk shit, but can't kind of deliver the goods.
Yeah.
And often we would have, in many of the cases between working at Bunnings or working at Office Works, which was your version of like Staples, yeah,
Okay. Office
right?
Max, Office Depot, Staples.
Office
Yeah.
Depot, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
All
Office
of
Depot.
these.
Yep, all the big warehouses, the big dollar kind of, retailers, but people would come in with concerns of their product, but I promise you what was crazy for me outside looking in was people didn't blame the manufacturer, they blamed the brand selling it because they ultimately had trust in that retailer first. And in a lot of cases, like if you think about Office Depot, for example, I remember there was this, Office Works. I remember there was a charging, like a portable charger, and it would overheat very quickly, and to the point where it could have been dangerous. And uh, local airlines were like refusing to let you take them on there in your luggage, and it became a thing. And Office Works sold it. And so, but people didn't blame the product. They blamed Office Works. And so now Office Works has to save face because they went to bed with a manufacturer who didn't treat them the way they should have been treated,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And now Office Works, it's a bit like hookup culture, really. In the book, I call it the casual hookup. And I call it the casual hookup because it's a one night stand in comparison to, between you, myself, we've been doing this for over 20 years. So reading this book, I know we look good.
We do look good for
We do
our
look good. It's
age.
the elder
Yes.
millennial
Mm.
genes.
I
But
I wish I was an elder millennial. I am.
let's just say you are. You can
Okay,
represent the thing.
sure. We'll
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But the point being that when you read this book, it really is just like a one night stand of how to get great sex in your organization. It is, but when you are a manufacturer, you can't be producing products for a one night stand. This is, this is not the Balinese markets that we're talking about.
You better You better bring some context to that for those in my audience who have never
Never been to
been to a
Bali
Balinese market. Bali is not exactly close
or
for us, just
Thailand
FYI.
markets? Full of
S-
rip-offs.
Still
Nothing
not
is
close
made to
for us.
last. But you go in, but I guess the other part is it's a little bit like, like those dating sites where you go in and it's just a meat market and you know what you're walking into. That's where I met my husband, by the way. But you
At the
know
meat
that
market, the
you're up
digital meat
for a
market.
cheap, skanky
Wait,
one
we
night
need to
stand.
let's just stop for a second. I need to understand how the clinical therapist hooked her husband on a digital meat market. Can we talk about this a little bit?
Sure. He was next in queue.
Look at you. Okay.
Yep. But
Very
long
clever.
story short, um, I had just come out of a 17-year relationship and I did eventually get into the online dating, which was a whole new world for me because that's not how you did it 17 years earlier. If anything, when the internet was coming out, people were like, "You're talking to a stranger. Oh my God, you're going to die." And now that's the only way you can talk to anyone. And
Yeah.
I went to some traditional websites first, and I had met a number of gentlemen who were just full of shit, and I couldn't stand it. And so I thought, you know what? Being the modern woman that I am, um, I'm going to go where I know what to expect, and no one has to lie to me because
Mm.
genuinely, that's how low my trust was. My trust was, and and still is. I have a real challenge with I can sense when people are trying to bullshit me, and I just kind of like raise my eyebrow at them, like, mate, come on, come on. And that didn't have to happen in that environment. And I appreciated that everyone in there was not not there to lie, not there to just here's what I want, here's what I can give you, and you choose. And so yeah, I did that and I inevitably met who is now my husband.
That's fascinating. So, do you think that people are in those apps more truthful about, and maybe not all of them, but more truthful about just kind of who they are and what they're looking for
Yeah.
in a
It's
potential
a
partner
very
than you are if
vulnerable.
you go to like the bar or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's very few people that put on a mask.
Hmm.
They are the type of person who is a bit like me, like, you get what you get. You do, you get what you get. I have tried to, people say to me, for example, you should stop swearing or you should, tone down the tone down the swearing. It's not very ladylike. I'm like, I'm not very good at being a lady. But it is literally who I am. I've been doing that and speaking this way since I was about 11 years old, much to my parents. Like, don't get that wrong. They did
You
not
picked
enjoy
up
it.
on the vocabulary from an early age.
Yeah. And I do not know where I picked it up from. I mean, my parents are sailors, genuinely. They're,
I think that's where you
yeah,
picked it up.
yeah, probably picked it up a little from there and went, hey, that. And I'm a very kinesthetic person. Like I don't doubt that the first time I said the F bomb, I felt something and I realized, hey, I like that. And as it turns out, there's whether they're real or not, but people keep sending me these stats that say studies show people with potty mouths or who curse often are the more honest and open people you could meet. And I'm like, I would actually agree in this instance.
Yeah.
I am. I am very candid. I when I'm working with people, I don't want to waste their time. I ask them if I can be candid with them and explain what that means. And that doesn't mean that I want to be rude or crass or hurt their feelings, but it does mean that I respect them enough that I don't want to waste their time. And I want to tell them what I see, what I observe, what I feel as it's occurring. And I always preface it with this is based on me, right? This is my experience. But often what I do is I do observations for organizations and just watch. Who knew you could get paid to people watch? It is the best. It's the best, right? But I do, and I watch and I observe and I kind of download what people are doing and why they might be doing it and if they recognize they're doing it. And, if you're in a leadership role, I would encourage you to do the same thing, just to sit back and just watch and understand how people move through whether, it's you and one other person or even if it's just you, just having self-awareness of how you move through your day, how you impact those around you. I will promise you, self-awareness is one of the most important things you can have and do for yourself and those around you is to start having a deeper awareness of the impact you have on everyone around you. And that's not to say that you have to be a different person, but that is to say, I am very aware that sometimes in different audiences, my swearing might hurt people's ears. And so, generally, like if I'm doing a talk, I will say to the audience, hey, I want to just check in with you. We're all adults. Everyone, yes? Yes. Great. Now, I just also want to just clarify there might be a bit of swearing because I'm an excitable kind of person. I'm like a Labrador up on stage, right? And I love this for you. And is that okay? And they'll be like, yeah. And because
Yeah.
you checked in with them, you didn't just take it for granted. Nearly never after
Mm.
starting doing it that way have I ever had complaints. And so it's an awareness about me that I'm not necessarily going to change, but what I am going to do is I'm going to change how it impacts others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like you're getting permission to be yourself from the audience. You a couple of things that struck me. Number 1, there are studies about swearing that also show all kinds of other things, including our ability to achieve certain things. Like, how long can I keep my hand in ice cold water? Well, if I start yelling random obscenities while I'm doing it, I can do it a lot longer than I can if I just keep my mouth shut, right? It's an expression of empowerment sometimes, using words that we're often told, "Hey, you shouldn't say that." Like,
Yeah.
you know what? It helps me sometimes do things that maybe would otherwise be more difficult.
Hmm.
Also, when you are talking about just being honest with people about their organizations, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but it sounds like that friend who's just going to be real with you and tell you how it really is.
Yeah.
When all of your other friends are like, I'm not going to tackle that subject because there could be some hurt feelings, things could go sour, but I've got the one friend that I know I can say, "Hey, just give me the real shit. Lay it on me. Like, what's happening right now?" And they will just say, "Hey, this is problematic and you're being an idiot and this is why you're being an idiot," or whatever the case may be.
Mm.
that ability to get honest feedback in your personal life is incredibly valuable, but in business, like, look, all these people in your organization, they wanna get promoted. They maybe feel like they have to play internal politics. They don't
Mm,
wanna piss people off. Like, I may not have that relationship with the company that I have with my best friend who's gonna give me the real deal, and so
right.
I may not wanna say those things. For you to come in and say, "I'll be that
I'll
person,"
be that person. Yeah.
huge
And
value to that.
often, I do, senior leader and executive mentoring as well, and they come in starting off talking about their business and, the obstacles that they're experiencing with their teams and, who's not playing in their lane and who's not doing the jobs properly and, all the, things that keep them up at night. And nearly within 2 sessions, we're breaking down their childhood, which can sound scary. And I don't evidently go in saying we're going to break down childhood. But what we do really quickly come to terms with is that the reason they're finding these things to be obstacles a lot of the time is for a couple of reasons. Either they have been put into a position where they were really good at their job, but they've been promoted and no one taught them how to do this job.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
like, "Oh, you're a really good general manager, so now we'll make you a director." And that's different, right? So and then what happens often is, they're in this director role, but now they're trying to, uh, they've got a new general manager and they're trying to tell the general manager how to do their job. It's like, "Mate, go worry about your own job," right? Because they can't let that one go. Now, why can't they
Mhm.
let that one go? And then the other part is that often what I see is they stay up at night and they get twisted over certain situations and they don't recognize it. But it comes down to often how they were raised and the experiences they had growing up. And it is revelation after revelation for them. And but what it also means is that there has to be a huge amount of trust between them and myself that they can open up and tell me about all of that stuff and
Mhm.
acknowledge that there's a reason as to why I'm asking. And we've talked to leaders who are burning the midnight oil, cannot shut the laptop. And the reality, when you get down to it, and one of them in particular, was they're such a control freak because when they were growing up, their parents weren't well. And one
Mm.
of them was into an addiction, and the other one was just bad health. And they were in control of everything, everything. And so they had to get a job to help put food on the table. And they have always been in charge. And if they didn't do it, everyone starved. And so they've taken that mentality into their adulthood. And they don't have children, but they cannot let go of this fear, essentially, that if they don't do it, everything will fall down. All the house of cards will tumble.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the stress, the cortisol, the hypertension, the health issues.
Mhm.
There is
Mhm.
no joy. There is no sex, sex, or CEHX because the impact, the personal impact that that leader has around the people they work with is essentially toxic.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
don't want to be around them.
Aileen, I have a question. Do you trust me?
Yes.
Okay. I would love to know how you feel about the Lego behind me.
It triggers my shit so hard.
Tell me more about that, Aileen.
Oh,
Tell
I
me
can
more
feel
about
it in
that.
my heart. You see how my red, my face has gone all red. Yeah, that's a visceral fuck that.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah, not for the putting it
Oh,
together. Phew, um, yeah, no, it is, for context, I am the oldest of 6 children, and there is a considerable age gap, between, myself and the youngest 3, and I was an working full-time, at a supermarket, and I would get home at like stupid hours in the morning, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And to get to my bedroom, I would have to traipse through my siblings' play area and to get to my door. And inevitably, every single night, I would step on Lego and I'd just be so tired. I had 2 jobs. I was tired, so exhausted, just body tired. If I was in a space to remember, I would go through the floor space and like shuffle my feet so that I would essentially like push it like a path to my door. But often I was literally just wiped and I would step on Duplo, Lego, and when I would complain to my parents, I don't know what triggers me harder, my parents' response or the Lego. There was probably a collection of both, and my parents said, "If you don't like it, then clean it up before you go to work."
mm,
And
mm,
now, don't
mm.
get me wrong, I love my parents, but their empathy to my situation was nil.
Lacking,
They didn't give a shit.
lacking.
The room was out of their vision. They had no it didn't impact them. And so at any point that, it impacted them, it was probably a problem. But it didn't impact them and it impacted me greatly. And so therefore it became up to me to find a solution. Yeah, so now and this sounds horrible. I'm sure we're gonna get hate, but I am triggered so hard. I appreciate and can think about all the time that you put into that. And that blows my tiny mind. Tiny, tiny mind is exploding. But I fear that that falls on the floor and I'd run for the hills.
Or trauma unlocked
Trauma.
right here on
Yeah.
Next in Queue.
Yep. Now
I
you're a
have
therapist.
actually, yeah, I have this tiny little Lego that actually was on my floor this weekend. I built a set. This set, for those of you that are watching, I put together the
Oh,
AT-AT
wow.
helmet. And this I found on my floor, and luckily I did not step on it, but I thought of you when I saw it on the floor. I was like, there's this tiny Lego on my office floor. And if Aileen would have stepped on that, things would have gone badly. I
Yeah,
want
my
to, while we have time, I want to switch gears just a little bit. Thank you for trusting me with your trauma. I appreciate it. XM Global Collaborative.
yes.
Tell us what this is, why it exists, and how you're involved in that.
XM Global is so XM is the acronym for experience management, and XM Global Collaborative is the brainchild uh of a colleague of mine, Tom, and he was the first person to come up with the master's degree for customer experience at Michigan State University. And sorry, I should say Tom DeWitt. And so DEWITT. If you're on LinkedIn, go follow him. He's a wonderful gentleman. And after he retired from Michigan State University, he realized that although he loves CX, that there's this real gap in the way we do business around the world, essentially, where we have this cohort of professionals who all care, and their whole purpose is the customer. But they are in experience management, so they might be in user experience, they might be in patient experience, they might be in user interface development, they might be in customer insights, and they were being overlooked as to the power that they have or that they hold when they are put together, when they are, you know, I think about the projects that I used to run, and we used to run them from a CX lens. And we obviously had, well, I say obviously, but depending on the project, we would have a user experience developer and a business development designer and all of this stuff. And they were nearly always worked with in silo. And Tom realized that, hey, you know what? Imagine the power we could create with this cohort of people, of these professionals, actually recognizing that what if they work together? And so he founded the XM Global Collaborative, and I contacted him before I knew about that. I had contacted him and said, look, I see you're leaving Michigan State, and I don't know how, being that you live over in the US and I'm in Melbourne, but I hope that our paths cross. And I would feel privileged even to work with you and the caliber of humans that you have connected to. And 2 minutes later, he was in my DMs and he's like, let's chat. I was like, oh, okay. So it just goes to show, put it out to the universe. It could sound ridiculous. It could sound absurd, but you never, ever know. And inevitably, he contacted me and said, I've put this association together. And so a lot of your listeners would know, say, for example, the CXPA. And this isn't to rival the CXPA, but there's no reason, I'm a certified customer experience professional myself. So CCXP, so many acronyms. It's
I
absurd.
know.
There's no reason why you can't be, in both. There's CX for women, but there's also members who are in different patient experience associations and whatnot. And it's not to say that you can only be in one. It's to say that when you're a member of XM Global Collaborative, you too can recognize the opportunities where working as a professional cohort, networking together, learning from each other. So much of what we do is connected. When I talk to UX developers and designers and talk to them about customer experience, they're like, oh, I don't really know much about it. And I'm like, and yet it's so crazy because it would probably make your life so much easier. And on the flip side, as a CX, you've got human-centered design schools and professionals like that. Imagine if they understood, broke those silos down and understood why that button should be red, or why,
Mhm.
why that screen should have this filter over it, or, all of those types of things that we know our lane, but the power is actually in knowing everybody else's as well. And not to say that we have to be experts. And that's why, in May, we hold our virtual conference. And this year, it is literally global. So this year, we've done it a bit differently. You say you're a global association, you better find a way to actually act like a global association. So this year in May for our virtual conference, which I invite everyone to attend, happy to share the details with people. It is 2 conferences held over 2 hemispheres. So we're going to have the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere. So I'm in the Western Hemisphere, you're in the Eastern Hemisphere, and it's going to start at 9 a.m. Eastern time. but we would have already done our first part of the conference at 9 a.m. Hanoi time. So 1 p.m. Melbourne time or 12 p.m. Melbourne time, depends, daylight savings nearly over. So, and the reality is that that means that we have, a multitude of speakers who are going to speak at one hemisphere, and a set of speakers are going to speak at another hemisphere. And ultimately, it means that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It should be at a reasonably decent time for you to engage and participate.
Yeah.
And the beauty is, if you're a member, you actually get the recordings from all speakers as well. So I encourage people to go to xmgc.org and find out. We actually have, and this is the other thing, right? This wasn't about the money for membership. It became about how do we make sure that we get as many amazing professionals under the XM banner to be a part of this, to grow this cohort, to grow this network and this education. We have mentoring. We have a mentoring platform, which is just phenomenal. You can sign up to be a mentor or to get mentored. And it doesn't have to be, CX to CX. It could be, I want to learn more about what it's like to design human-centered services, for example. But the pricing structure is different in every country. It's based on their GDP.
Okay. Okay.
So, we're not going to go to, say, Vietnam, for example, and expect that they should pay the same as they would in London,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it means that everybody has access. It means that everybody can be a part of it. And it's not just who's got the coin, it's who's got the goodwill to be a part of this community and help it grow.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned some links, places to go. People will find that in the show notes. So go down to the show notes, connect with Aileen, go register for this incredible event coming in May, and tell them that you heard about it on Next in Queue. That would be amazing.
Rob's coming
And
to speak as
I
well. So
I am.
Rob's
I
going to be a
am.
speaker. Come and cheer him on.
Aileen, it has been my privilege to
No,
talk with you today. Thank
mine
you
too.
so much for joining me on Next in Queue.
I'm so privileged to join you. Thank you for having me.
Next in Queue is produced by me, Rob Dwyer. Theme music is courtesy of Big Red Horse. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with at least one person. Word of mouth is the best way for people to discover new content. And thanks for listening.